Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M. This is Ukraine War Frontline update for the 18th of January 2024. And without further ado, let's get to the front line via the key to what the map means. If you don't know what the lines on my map mean, please check out this picture, this key on the screen at the moment. Pause the video. Right, then we'll go back to the northeastern axis from Kupiansk to Svatovo to Crimea, just here, and see what actually the ISW has to say of the area. Not too much to report. Yes, there's activity going on in a number of places, but I have picked out this. So Ukrainian ground forces spokesperson said that Russian forces are currently shifting their offensive efforts from the Kupiansk direction to the Liman direction. So just to put that on the map, this is the Kupiansk direction where they have been attacking. This is the Liman direction where they have had some success going towards both Makivka up here, and also there's Makivka, and also towards Terny just down here. Liman there. So moving from the north of this axis to the south there is the claim from this ISW source. So, or Ukrainian spokesperson. Ukrainian Kharkiv Oblast head has stated that Russian attacks in the Kupiansk direction have decreased in the past 3 weeks to 2 to 5 attacks per day. Stated that the Ukrainian forces are expecting renewed Russian assaults in the Kupiansk direction as soon as consistent sub-zero temperatures freeze the fields and soil in the area. So this is arguably contradictory, moving attacks from down here, from up there to down here, but also the idea that actually it's the weather that's keeping things a bit quiet. There's been a decrease in attacks, and actually once the weather changes, once the ground is harder, then we'll see more attacks. Is the idea there. A current weather forecast suggests that the temperature in Luhansk will hover at or below consistent temperatures cold enough to freeze the ground in late January 2024, suggesting that Russian forces could renew assaults with ground conducive to manoeuvre in late January or early February. So it could be that the Russians have switched from fighting up here to fighting further down south where the conditions are more conducive. I don't know. Or that just simply isn't the case. Now, we have some changes to the mapping, as according to Syriac Maps, a pro-Russian mapper, showing that the Ukrainians have pushed the Russians back in this Persia-Travnevi to Vilshana area. I don't know too much about this because Syriac Maps hasn't actually mentioned it. They've only mentioned the Russian gains in their usual sort of map tweets like this. So not announcing this, you have to pick it up. JR's picked this up on the mapping today. Thanks, mate. And seen that actually they've changed the mapping a little bit there. So I don't know whether it's a rejig or a counter attack from the Ukrainians there. Anyway, that is one of the three sort of areas of change of territory. The second one is down here south of the salient we were talking about at Terny there, where there's no changes, but there's some fairly I guess not significant, but they are agreed upon by both the mappers here, and you can see they're both in line with each other almost exactly in the area. That's Andrew Perpetua and Syriac Maps showing some increase in the Bilahorivka area, as you can see from this tweet. So the Russian army continue the advances in the northeastern outskirts of Bilahorivka, and I showed you the topography around there. It's a fairly difficult place to consistently gain territory, but we'll see. The Russians have pushed on a little bit further, possibly, than we've seen them previously. Because they might have got to the village previously, actually. Can't remember. Goodness me, the war's been such a long time, hasn't it? Nonetheless, some gains for the Russians in that particular area. Nothing then to talk about in terms of changing in the Seversk front line, or even in Bakhmut. We'll go to the ISW that says quite a bit about Bakhmut, but actually nothing that entails any changes, or no confirmed changes to the front in this area. So we'll actually bypass Bakhmut, and again, when there are no changes like that, that is definitely good for the Ukrainians. In terms of attrition, in terms of not having pressure from the Russians, there's probably a lot of fighting going on, but actually we haven't really seen much change in Bakhmut, any significant change for some time. Right, in Avdiivka, it's quiet as well, as in quiet in terms of changes to the territorial control map. It has been pretty hellish in Avdiivka with regard to what the Russians are doing from the air. And I thought this was incredibly important to point out. So a Russian mill blogger claimed that the Russian rate of advance near the water treatment facilities close to the Avdiivka coke plant is about 100 to 200 meters a day. Now, that's not the important part, but I just will put that on the map. So you've got the water treatment plant here by the Avdiivka coke plant, and it's around here that the Russians are advancing 1 to 200 meters a day, which would account to something like where do we no, not like that, change that. So there we go. That's going to be about 100 meters, 100 to 200. So that's 150 meters, give or take. So something like that a day. We have seen some increases in that area over the last few days that could well verify that. But this is the important part. So Ukraine Donetsk head Filashkin stated that the Russian forces have dropped 250 glide bombs on Avdiivka since the beginning of 2024. That is 18 days, 250, and that compares to 149 in all of 2023. So in 18 days, the Russians are approaching doubling the number of aviation guided glide bombs that have hit Avdiivka in the entire year of 2023. My goodness, that's like 52 times higher, or give or take, or it's about 50 times higher the amount of bombs that are hitting Avdiivka. It must be getting absolutely hammered at the moment, and we do know that Andrew Perpetua has talked about the impact of these large bombs on Avdiivka. It is not good. It's not easy to be a Ukrainian civilian or military person in that area. It must be pretty horrific. Right. Moving on further to the south, there are no changes to the mapping at Krasnohorivka, Mariinka, Novomykhailivka, Vuhledar, all these kind of areas. Nothing to report in terms of change, and indeed that's what it says in the ISW. No confirmed changes to the front in any of these areas. No confirmed changes, and that gets us pretty much down to Kinky. Now let's go to the map. So no confirmed changes all the way along this front line, past Velikhanova Silka, past Robotina, although there will be activity taking place, of course. Weather is going to be playing a part. Having said that, there's been some heavy casualties and heavy losses for Russian equipment over the last couple of days, and that will probably refer to largely these columns of vehicles that have been attacking Avdiivka again, and possibly activity going on in the north too. Kinky has also been a scene of large Russian losses as the Ukrainian drones are very active in the area. However, it's not looking good for the Ukrainians here, at least according to Syriac Map. So Syriac Map says that the situation on the Kherson front during the last 3 days, the Russian army was able to capture more areas of Kinky as the Ukrainian army start the withdrawal from the urban area under its control, which is now the grey zone. They say during the next hours it's expected that the area will be cleared by Russian troops. This is an increase of the Russian control in the area that we've seen from Syriac Maps over the last few days. Not what Andrew Perpetua has shown, so we'll wait to see whether there is any merit in the claims from Syriac Maps. Andrew didn't change his mapping yesterday that you might have expected had Syriac Maps' original claims to the closing of the grey zone being true from the previous day. So I don't know. I mean, this is Poulet Volant, a map I haven't actually dipped into for some time, but you can see that the idea here is that the Ukrainians robustly control the island area in the delta behind Kinky, but the Russians still not, further on from basically where Andrew Perpetua has them there. So I know he does refer in large part to Andrew Perpetua's mapping, but not exclusively. So are the Ukrainians fighting to hold on to Kinky, or are we seeing them pull out? I've said over the last week that if the ratios are not in favour of the Ukrainians, then there's no real reason to stay there. The only issue for them is actually with the frozen waters that are affecting the boat movements, it's very difficult for the Ukrainians to get their troops out from there. And I've seen some footage of Ukrainian boats being hit by Russian IEDs. I've seen pictures of soldiers on top of ice sheets where maybe their boat's been destroyed and there's one straggler left and they're dropping an ID on him on an ice sheet. And yeah, it's just some not too nice stuff of Ukrainian boats having a really hard time of it with regard to the Russian drones operating in the area. I know I've said previously there's been an advantage for the Ukrainians in terms of drone activity, in terms of electronic warfare and counter-battery and whatnot, and that's coming from the Russians themselves. But that's not to say that's all the time. These things are dynamic, and the Russians are being able to destroy quite a number of these boats, not helped at all by the situation with the ice on the river. So that is pretty much that for Kinky. From my point of view, the ISW says a Russian mill blogger claimed that personnel from the 8th Company, the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade, hoisted a Russian flag over the centre of Kinky, although the ISW has not observed any visual evidence confirming this claim. And this you see being reported as well, or being denied, by Rebar. So the actually not Rebar, but it's referring to Rebar's map. Last update from Ukraine war as of January the 18th from different fronts, including Crimea, Avdiivka, Lviv, Odessa, Kharkiv, Kherson front update. So that this chap says Russians claim they hoisted the flag in the center of Kinky, but this information is false. So just be warned about that. It appears to be false, or at least that's what the claims are. And ISW says that there's no observation to prove that claim. Positional engagements continue near Kinky. Russian sources claim that the Dnipro River has frozen in many areas, making it difficult for Ukrainian forces to cross the river and for Russian forces to operate on Dnipro River islands. So I think it's going to be super challenging for the Ukrainians there, as well as it is for the Russians, of course. But it could be a moment where we see the Ukrainians genuinely pull out of the Kinky bridgehead, or there could be some misinformation flying about and the Russians aren't making the advances that, say, Surrey Maps is claiming. Anyway, that's the entirety of the Frontline for you. I hope that was informative and useful. Thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate all your support. Please take care, and I'll speak to you soon.